Believe it or not, it's been almost 6 months since I did a plot tour, so I thought I'd better get you up to date. The last 2 weeks have been horrendous with rain, non-stop. It doesn't let off at all. We've still got local flooding on the plots. Mine down by the greenhouse is still underwater. Before we carry on, I've got a piece of paper here with notes on, because nearly all the stuff's out now and I've just lost track of what's planted where and when it's planted, so I'll be referring to this as we go along. So without further ado, let's crack on. Start off with this tank here. This is my first lot of Swede candle acetone, and these were sown on the 23rd of April. There's 35 carrots in there, 7x5. Now normally with the carrots I thin them out to 1 per station as they've grown and germinated and that, but for some reason I only did half the tank, so I got half still with 3 or 4 carrots together, and the other half has got hopefully decent sized single carrots, so we'll see how they go on. On this next one here we got some red lettuce. I can't remember the variety, but it's hearting up quite well. Some gaps down the outside. These had Webb's Wonderful in, but we've harvested most of them. There's one left, that's all in there. I might fill them up with some more lettuce, because I've got some more just germinated and they need planting out quite soon. Onto this one here. This here had got I think it's all year round lettuce in here. Again, there's only one left. I did interplant them with white Lisbon spring onions, and also there's radish in the middle. We haven't ate the radish fast enough and they've bolted and gone to seed. This tank here is the second one of the Swede candle are sown, and these were sown on the 16th of May. They've all germinated quite well and I have thinned these out. I did have one, I think it was, which failed, but what I did and also is that when I thinned them out, I took them out gently and I've popped them into a bucket, and they seem to be growing okay. I know that Terry's doing a similar test like that, so we'll see how they go. There's another little tip here I can give you, is thinning the carrots out. You obviously generate the smell, and that's where the carrot root fly can smell it. So one thing I've got a bucket with water in, and I've just thrown the discarded carrots into the bucket, and hopefully that'll stop the smell and the carrot root fly from recognising it. Moving on now here to these are the garlic. This is the elephant garlic, is it? Yeah. This was the one you may remember that Nick from Nick's Allotment kindly supplied this, because my bulbs had rotted. Anyway, there was I think there was 4 or 5 each row, 2 rows. They've all done very well. It's got nice thick stems. The scapes come on most of them. I think I've took 2 off. You can actually use these in cooking and nicely chopped up in an omelette. Got a nice more of a leek flavour than anything else. So that's the elephant garlic. I'll just move down here. This here now is the just normal garlic, and there's 2 varieties here. There's Provence white there. There's 2 rows, and there's another 4 rows of Marco. Now these have got the dreaded rust appeared on them. It has been on all that long, but hopefully I'll give it a day. If we get a few dry days, I'll be pulling these up, drying them out. Looking at the size of the stems on them, I should hoping for some decent sized bulbs out of them, but until you lift them you can't really tell, can you? In this bed here we got the overwintering onions, or they sometimes call them the Japanese onion sets. Now as you can see, there's a few here have actually gone to seed with the scapes again, but these are coming near to harvest. Just have a look on the sheet what we've got. There's 3 rows of radar, 3 rows of electric red, and those down the bottom there, 3 rows of Shakespeare. Looking at them, I'm very, very pleased. They're bulbing up really well, so As I say, by the time these harvest, I'm looking forward to some decent sized onions. This here is my one and only courgette that I'm growing this year. Last year I think we grew 2 or 3 and we had too many, so I'm putting all my money or eggs in one basket and just growing the one. As you can see, the snails and slugs have already been in here and give it a good devouring. That leaf's completely gone. The growing tip is still in good condition, and I've popped a few little slug pellets around just to try and catch any marauders that think they can finish it off. Moving on to the brassica bed now. This is divided into 3 like all the others are. In the first bed here I've got the cabbages, in the second one I've got cauliflowers, and right at the far end we've got the calabrese. In this end bed here we've got a mixture of Killerton cabbage and the greyhound. There's a 50-50 mixture of each. But there's also a red one there called Ladero, and that was one of the plug plants that I had from DT Brown. One single row, 4 plants along each of the 3 beds, so it's a total of 12. We've got Brussels sprouts, and that one is called Crispus, and them are the club root variety. So there's the cabbages, all looking well. No sign of any pest damage yet, but a bit early yet. Looking onto the cabbages here, these are primarily Clapton. Now Clapton is a club root resistant variety again. I think there's 15 of those, and right on the very end on that side there's a variety called Moby Dick, which is again part of the collection from DT Brown's, the plug plants. Again, they look a bit smaller than the Clapton, but hopefully they'll produce just as good a crop. And finally on this end we got the calabrese, and this is my favourite of all time, called Iron Man. It's a very reliable cropper, and it looks to be storming away now. As you cut the tops off the main floret, put a cross in, you'll get little side shoots out, and that'll give you another good 2 or 3 feeds. So that's Iron Man, recommended. Moving across to the allium bed, the onions, it's not so good news. The very early part here, this is where the shallots have been planted out. Originally they were started off in cell trays. Golden Gum with a variety, and they've got here the 30th of November they went into the trays. They germinated and went out. Now all of them have split, and then they've got probably 4 or 5 different shallots on them, but the size don't look all that good. But anyway, I'll leave them for another week or 2, because this bed with a little gap included here is destined where the leeks are going to be going. Now they're in the coal frame at the moment, them thickening up and them coming on quite nice, so it won't be long, probably say 2 or 3 weeks, the leeks will be coming into here when the shallots go out. Across the other side here we've got the these are the banana shallots. There's a brown. Now I did sow another variety, the red variety called Long Red Florence, but the germination was very poor after that. A number of sowings and I only got a few out of it. So these are primarily Zabroon, and they look to be doing okay. Since we've had this rain, they've thickened up quite well. And on the right on the far end there is these are the Kelsey, some of the plug plants that was come from DT Brown, and they've perked up. There was a bit low when I put them in, but after a few days they soon pop up and they look as though they're doing okay. Moving around into the middle bed, all of this is the heat-treated onion sets. There was a combination of fen, red fen, fen early and rumba. Now looking at them first glance, you'll see that they look okay, but closer inspection you can see the leaves have curled, so that means the dreaded onion fly have gone in. Normally I'll cover these, surround them, put over the top with Enviromesh, but for whatever reason, I can't remember now, I never got round to it, delayed, and by the time I thought I'd better put it on, it was too late. I noticed the onion fly was in, so I'll be leaving them as it is now. I have got a new design I want to do for next season with another framework, but it'll still involve Enviromesh, so I'll be sharing that with you as and when we get it up and running. The final bed here, this little area here again, this is the seed onions. and again the onion fly has got into it, although there's still quite a few which might stand up to it and give us a decent crop. And back on the end there, this one here is the ones we had from DT Brown, and again there's one or two of them caught the onion fly, but apart from that I think we might get a decent crop. So the onions are a bit hit and miss. They could have been better, but not as bad as some of I've seen on site. This is the main 3 beds of potatoes I've got. Before we look at potatoes, let's check these out, these beauties. These are the sunflowers, and the variety is called Titan. And I'll be entering these, or picking the best one to enter into Nick's Allotment Diary. He's running various competitions with sunflowers, and I'll be going for I think it's the tallest or the one with the largest diameter head, but that's Nick's Allotment Diary. He's doing his 2019 sunflower challenge. Moving on to the potatoes, these are actually sown direct into the bed, and these are called Sarp Almira. The bit's been planted in, and the top of the bed's been covered with horse manure and straw. The plants have not been earthed up, and they'll be staying like that for harvest time. That's the way I've grown them for the past 2 or 3 years, and I've had a decent crop. So these are the Sarp Almira in the ground. In the middle bed here we got Sarpos again, but these are grown in buckets. There's 20 buckets, 5 by 4, and these are grown together with the other ones there, then grown in the clover, potato and vegetable compost. So it'll be interesting to see how they fare, and definitely the comparison between the 2 Sarpos, the ones grown in the ground and the ones in the bucket. And the last of the potatoes in the big buckets are these are the shallots, my second earlies, and I've checked the date, and I think these are on about 90 odd days now, so I'll be looking very near future to pull in a few of these to see how they go. Big fear was that the dreaded blight was going to hit, because I do register with the BLIGHTWATCH website, and you put your postcode in it and it notifies you within a certain radius of your postcode if blight's been in the area. And I have had a report last week that I think I'm not sure if it's a 5-mile radius of my house that there's a blight in, but so far they've stood up to it and they look okay. So these are the shallots. Hopefully we'll get a good crop from them. As you can see, it's not raining now, and this is what today's deluge has left me. It's gradually, the water table's going down, but the plants don't need watering, that's a definite. These are the parsnips called Gladiator. There's 32, 4 rows, 8 in each row. When I planted them with the collars around, you may recall I put half a dozen seeds in. I've had very good germination. I should say it's about 80 to 90% germination. Or you may notice there's a plastic cover on the end there. That there's because our friendly local blackbird took a fancy to that, just that one pot, and he kept digging it, and eventually the seedlings all come out, so there's nothing left. What I've done, I've put another 5 or 6 seeds in, covered it up with compost, and I've put that on top just to give it a bit of protection, just in case it comes back thinking there's something else in. So that's the parsnips. I'll be thinning the rest out again within the next week or so, weather dependent of course, and they'll be going down to 1 each, and the collars will be coming off. In the next row here we've got this is the Swede. The variety is called Tweed F1, direct sown. I have sown them in modules in the past, but this year I decided to go direct, and I've had great germination again. These are at a stage now where we can start looking at thinning them out. So again, that's another job on the list, to thin the seeds out. This one here is there's 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 11 lettuce. I think these are called oak leaf, and I had these off Nick from Nick's Allotment. He kindly gave us some. Them looking superb. And on this end here we've got half a dozen bunches of spring onion. These are the variety called Ramrod. This bed in front of me here is the blight resistant trial of tomatoes. Got 3 varieties, 4 of each. There's Crimson Crush, Mountain Magic and Furline, all planted, all sown at the same time, same compost. and all planted out at the same time, so it's going to be an interesting comparison to see how they fare against each other. If the blight does arrive on the site in earnest, we'll see who stands up to it, who don't. But most important thing for me is the flavour, because at the moment Mountain Magic Furline just don't come to the taste test when it's up against Crimson Crush. At last I've got some beetroot showing. This was 2 rows that I sown direct. I did try, I think it was 2 or maybe 3 times sowing in modules, and the germination rate was abysmal. I tried different seeds, everything. So I was sowing direct. It has thrown quite a lot up. You'll see some which are probably a bit more forward than the other, and them are the odd 1 or 2 which I did get out of the modules. But beetroot this year for me has been quite disappointing. Moving across, we've got the peas. It's 2 rows. The first row there, both of them are Hurst green shaft, and they've been out probably about 4 weeks now, up, climbing up against the rails. This second row here, from germination, within 10 days they was ready to plant out. There was very, very rapid. I've still got to put a support up the middle, but the first lot have actually got pods on, so I reckon within next week or so we'll be harvesting our very first peas of the season. This is the sweet corn, and a bit less than normal. I've just put 18 plants in, 6 by 3, because our requirements have dropped. So these have only been in a few, well, probably a week or so now. I've put the screen round them to protect them from the wind, and also the fox comes digging in sometimes. But they look, I can see how they've grown in the last week or so. So them coming on okay. This variety is called Incredible. I've grown it for, I think it's 2 years now, 3 years, and the crop is incredible. It does live up to its name. So that's the sweet corn. We're in the runner bean trench now, and we've got a mixed bag in here. A bit late putting these out, but I sowed some was germinated on kitchen roll, and others was germinated by actually traditional sowing in compost. All the way along this side there's 16 plants, and now the runner beans, the variety is called Benchmaster. So these are quite popular with the show growers, and I have grown them definitely last year, and I may have done them the year before. On this side here, the plan was to have a Cobra and Blue Lake, but the germination of the Blue Lake was very, very poor. And as it is, I've got that many Cobra. What I've done, I've doubled the plants up, so there's 2 plants per cane, 16 canes long, and it's only the last 2 or 3 canes that contain the Blue Lake. So the Cobra fared better than the others. With the warm weather we had 3 or 4 weeks ago, and 2 weeks of continuous rain, it comes as no surprise that the blight has arrived. These are the first early potatoes. They're called Swift. Unfortunately, these are around the 92 days, so they'll be ready for harvesting any time now. In fact, as soon as I've finished doing the video on here, I'll be taking the horns off and putting them in the bin to get down to the council tip. Looking at the fruit trees, they seem to be doing okay. We've got lots and lots of cherries on there, as you can see. I might net part of the tree because the blackbirds are very partial to the cherries, but so am I. There's plenty at the top for the share with the birds, but now I'm quite happy with the way the cherry tree has performed so far, and we haven't lost many in the drop, so looking good. This is the Egremont Russet, my favourite apple. First sight, there's some fruits, but they're very, very small, and it doesn't seem as well loaded as it did last year. This tree seems to escape most of the pests. You might recall from the last video that the Golden Delicious tree up the far end of the plot has succumbed to some aphids or something where it's all curly, but hopefully this will reward us again with a decent crop. It's thin at the moment, but hopefully they'll fatten out. Just move along farther along here, and we'll go and have a look at the pear tree. Now the guys at the RHS, when I took a leaf, actually says we've got pear leaf blister mite on this tree, but the pears, you can see there, them still forming nice, and throughout the tree, if you look carefully, there's still plenty of fruit on it. There's one or two dropping off on the June drop, I've noticed, on top of the mesh of the cowl frame, but again, I ain't had too many pears off this tree, so luckily I think we're going to have a good crop this year. Moving on to the strawberry cage, this is absolutely laden with fruit. The plants, you may recall, I put these in I think it was autumn last year. They was from Pomona fruits, and they've stayed all through the winter all green. They haven't lost no colour or gone brown, and I think they've been like this. And the last few weeks with the rain we've had, they've thickened up and the fruits are just bursting, so hopefully we'll get a good crop off these, and with the net on, I know the birds are not going to get it all. Made at the famous asparagus bed. Thankfully the mole's gone now, got rid of him. I've had a trap down here for over a week, there's nothing else been put in, and a lot of the other allotment holders are breathing a bit more easily now because he did run havoc on this site. He's wrecked part of the asparagus bed. I reckon there's about 5 crowns gone down, so probably in the autumn I might be replacing those. In the meantime, after I've done a bit of weeding in here, there is plenty of room in here, and it'll give me an opportunity then to plant out some of the flowers I've got. I've got dahlias, zinnias and a few other things, and this will help brighten this area up because it ain't got very many happy memories for me for this year. Final part of the fruit tree is this the Golden Delicious. As you saw probably on another video, this has had a right battering with infestation or something, got leaf curl, and really not sure what it is. Can't see any visible aphids on it, but the main thing for me, it looks as though it's going to be cropping good as well, so thumbs up for that. Hopefully we'll get another crop. These are really good apples, and they do last well into winter as well, and they store quite well in the shed. So hopefully Golden Delicious, we're going to have another good crop. Inside the allotment greenhouse it's all looking hunky-dory now. The plants have settled down after putting them in the new homes. There's quite a few tomatoes now, got the first trusses showing, so very soon I'll be starting adding the first feeds. Just a few peppers down the bottom, I'll probably put those in pots and they'll end up in the cowl frame. One of the few remaining vegetables left to go out is the celery, and they're bulking up nicely now in these cell trays, so give it another week or so and they'll be in their final resting places on the beds. It's good news on the grapevine and all. This is a Black Hamburg, and I think it's the 3rd year I've cut the fruits off every year to try and put the energy back into the main rods, but I think it's well old enough now to start giving us some fruit back, so I'm going to let this go and see what we get at the end of the season. So that's what's been growing in the allotment. The rain has brought it on quite a lot. While we're here, I'll give you a quick tour around the garden and show you how the baskets and that are doing. So that brings that tour to an end, and I hope it was well worth waiting for. As you can see, the next week or so, weather permitting of course, it's going to be quite busy because we've got first early potatoes to harvest. I'll be doing them now within the next 10 minutes, cutting the foliage down at least because the blight's here. And also the garlic, and that I'll fetch them out and give them a good drying out. So thanks very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye for now.